This journey all started when you received that strange Facebook message from two teens claiming to be your siblings, and you held onto that secret for 8 years before starting this documentary. How did you know now was the right time to start that exploration? And how soon after did you realize you wanted to have your brother on this journey with you?
Yeah, so after receiving that message, it took me by, I was shocked. I was like, is this real? Why I can't believe this is happening. And living with that idea, it took a lot of time for me to integrate that and understand and I spent some of the time actually hiding from it, kind
Hmm.
of like being like, okay, this is real, but I'm gonna put it away in the back of my head. And part of that decision was because Ben was so much younger than me. And I felt, I had concerns about bringing this up. And I was like, how is Ben gonna, what is this gonna change about how he sees our family and all that?
Mm.
So I kind of held on to it. And by the time Ben turned 20, we were really close friends and we were collaborators on different projects actually. And I showed up to Ben. He was in college. I showed up to Ben's dorm, and I was like, Ben, I have, I have this story. We can make it into a movie, and I want you to be a part of it, and it's going to require me and you to be on camera. And he was like, What is it? What's going on? And I told him, look, just I'll call you one day, show up to my place, and I'll tell you what it's all about. So that's how the movie starts, and the idea I think came around to actually taking the plunge to make the film was just that at some point you know, I lived with this for so long, my curiosity got the better of me, and I removed that thing from the back of my head and said, okay, like I need to dive into this because I need to figure out how this affects my personal identity.
Mm.
And so that's what kind of prompted it.
That bond that you have with Ben is incredible to see on screen. And you really take audiences on this emotional roller coaster with you. And it very much feels like they're along that ride with you. Was that immersion something that you were mindful of during the filming process? Can you talk a little bit about the filming and the editing process to create that intimacy on screen and the ways in which that you captured those emotions?
Yeah, I think the thing that was it was kind of inherent in the journey is we knew that okay, if I'm gonna go do this and we're gonna film it, that the most important thing is authenticity because we didn't know, there was no script, there's no idea. There's a rough structure of like, okay, we know we're gonna be here in Los Angeles, talk about it, go to Russia, and then we're gonna come back and obviously have a conversation with my parents. That's all we knew. And we chose to film it with a very small crew where
Hmm.
it's a group of five of us. It's me, my brother, my girlfriend Flavia at the time, and my really close friends Mitch and Mara, and they're the married couple. So we're like just friends making a little movie. And so we had small DSLR cameras that were able to not freak people out when we would pull it out and just be able to take the camera and the audience on that journey wherever we went. And at the end of the day, it's an emotional ride and it's my life. So there was no, at the end of the day, there was no hiding. And I just needed to experience this. And in a way, the filmmaking part really took a back seat eventually. And I was just
Hmm.
there present for every moment. And so I think that that kind of intimacy is just a byproduct of really close friends, just knowing that we were filming something that wasn't a movie, but it was my life. And that's vulnerable and exciting all at the same time.
Perfect segue to this next question, but there's so much trust that you do need in filmmaking. And it was so interesting that your father in Russia talks about the fact that it does take time to build those relationships and that trust, but he still shared so many vulnerable conversations with you on camera. How were you able to build that bond so quickly? And how much of that was a byproduct of the fact that you were equally as vulnerable and open about your own perspectives?
Yeah, it's when I was lucky. I gotta say, I felt lucky to be received by a member of my family that I'd never met before with open arms. And of course, he's my biological dad, but like you don't know if we were going to be
Yeah.
on the other side, you know? And so I'm grateful that that whole side of the family hadn't seen me in 29 years. So to show up, of course, it's an exciting moment and there's a lot to catch up on, and there's like this wall of understanding that wow, that 29 years also inherently means that there's things where we're just different and we don't know if we're going to connect or not. So I think all those conversations are probably me and him trying to find ways to connect with each other, and being transparent and honest in this on those moments is all we could do. There was no other choice. I think for me, I don't know, it's just one of my truths to be honest, and that integrity is an important value for me just as a person.
Hmm.
So that came for me naturally in the film and my interactions. And yeah, that moment that you talk about in the film, it was really, it's one of the moments that still, when I watch it, it's really hard for me to process, and it makes me ask a lot of questions for myself now because I'm a father. So
Mm. And then there's also such an interesting study on the cultural and generational nuances, which is really highlighted in the conversations and interactions that you have with your siblings in Russia. Also, that conversation that you have with your parents at the end of the film. Were there any surprising revelations that you made through those interactions?
well, I was definitely, you think a culture or somebody, how you have expectations around how somebody might react. And I think, there's a scene in the middle of the film where I meet my sister for the first time, and Ben is, he's basically ruminating on the different roles of father figures, and it really was emotional for me, and it made me cry. And my sister is
Hmm.
watching, and she's like, this is making me really shy,
Yeah.
like we are not like this in Russia. And that kind of Eastern European mentality, that's something my parents still have, and
Mm.
that it's like that heritage, that part of it. And in a way, it's generational too. I think, the younger generations, they're kind of like a lot more open to just like, let's talk about it, let's put it on social media, like here it is, and there's a level of kind of, okay, some things we don't talk about, some things need to stay private. And sometimes I think that surprises me to this day still, because you just expect everybody else to be like you in a way, to approach a situation like you are. And it's important to remember that everybody has the right to, to approach a situation a certain way, or make a decision that this is private, that I don't need to share it. And so that is a surprise, and it was a surprise for me in the film, because when we get to, the end of the film, I expected the conversation with my parents to go one way, and it goes the complete opposite way, and it's kind of a twist in the film. And it's just a reminder, you can't, you got to release expectations of other people.
And you also edited this film, and that's really in the phase in the filmmaking process where things begin to start taking shape. Were there themes that were less prevalent during the filmmaking process that emerged during that process? And what was it like getting to watch this entire journey again from a different lens, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, so it was really tough. It took us 7 years to complete the film because we
Mm,
shot 350 hours worth of footage. So when you watch the film, it feels like it takes place in 8 days, but really it's a month long duration that we filmed the film during. And because of that, there were a lot of different versions of this film. At one point, we actually had an episodic version of it, 6 30-minute
mm,
episodes. And in that, you get to see everybody's, idiosyncrasies a lot more. Ben, Flavia, even Mitch and Mara, they end up a lot more on camera. And at the end of the day, we were sitting in this editing room and whittling this thing down, trying to figure out the best way to present it. And the tricky thing was, like the climax scene, for instance, you're watching it and you're editing it, and we're editing it for
Yeah.
weeks and weeks and weeks, and the whole time you're crying. You're watching it, you're crying and just saying like, okay, can we make this cut here? Like, stop, wait, stop real quick, let's make a cut here. And so it's weird because, yeah, I am reliving the whole thing as I'm editing it. And part of that was I actually, I think, got to process everything
Yeah.
during that, and it helped. It actually helped me. And Ben at one point calls me and he says, "Hey, you've been editing this thing for like years and years, but mom and dad haven't seen it. Like they need to see this." And that experience was so healing for them and for me to screen the film to them. But yeah, the editing of the film was tough because getting to the hour and a half version really made us look at what is the most important through line in the film. How do we tell that? And it really focused on anything to do with my identity. So if I was trying to
Hmm.
fill a gap in my identity that was related to my biological dad, that would make it in the film. And anything about just going on the journey of meeting these family members. So there's a lot of things that got left on the editing room floor that were really fun. At one point, I have to do oral surgery on Ben because he gets something stuck in his mouth, and we're like in the middle of the Russian, wilderness essentially, and yeah, I have to get him drunk and operate on his mouth with like a needle. And
Mm.
so there's scenes like that have they're super fun, and we edited
Yeah.
them in like a really fun way, but they have nothing to do with the through line, the main through line of the film.